I've made a deal with the devil. Is that considered selling your soul? I am back with another spooky story. And this story was submitted from Atlanta, Georgia. We'll call the person who submitted the story Anna. Anna said, now this all started about 6 years ago. 6 years ago, she fell into a really bad spot financially and she really needed help. And it seems like no matter what she did, she just wouldn't catch a break. It would be one thing after the other after the other. Now keep in mind, Anna is a single mother who has a child that she has to provide for. So when she ended up losing her job, that put her in a state of panic. And due to her losing her job, not only was she struggling with rent and food, or bills in general, but she wasn't even able to celebrate her own daughter's birthday, as she had no money and she was in this by herself. She applied for endless amounts of jobs and nothing was coming up for her. Things got so bad, it got to a point where her utilities started turning off. So she didn't even have hot water for a while. Eventually, she got to a point where she really financially could not take care of her daughter, so she sent her daughter to her mother to take care of her. Now, while this was not a decision that she wanted to make, as the mother lived all the way out in Boston, even though it wasn't a choice that she wanted to make, she had to send her daughter to Boston to live. While her daughter was away in Boston, let's just say that Anna got busy. She found use of her time. Said at that point she was so desperate in her life that she just wanted anything to work. She was just throwing stuff at that point, hoping that something would stick. To which point she came across witchcraft. There was a spiritual store that was selling crystals and herbs and all that good stuff, and she went in there and she met this lady. They hit it off basically and became friends. Now Anna says that she really appreciated her friendship with this lady as she validated everything that she was going through. When she opened up to this lady about her financial issues and everything else she was experiencing in her life, this lady believed that she could fix all these issues via spirituality. So that's when she started to lean into spirituality. And to make matters worse, a few weeks later, she comes home and she notices a letter on her door. And at that point, she had been served with an evictions notice. Desperate to find an answer, Anna decided to do something that she did not think would work. And Anna says, and I quote, "I genuinely never thought that anything would have came out of this." And what Anna did was draw a star on the ground. So Anna drew a 6-point star and put a candle at each point of the star, equating to 6 candles, and decided to repeat a chant to summon a god, any god, 6 times, while she stood in the middle of the circle. She said she chanted, nothing happened, so she pretty much just cleaned up and went to sleep, didn't think about it. Well, later that night, she had a dream. She had a dream that she was approached by this red creature. She said that the creature was red from head to toe and had black eyes. Even though they were horrifying to look at, their energy was pretty calming. To which this person walked up to her and told her that you have summoned me and I'm here. State your wish, but it also comes at a price. Okay, Rumpelstiltskin. Anna asks, well, what is the price? And the creature replies, depends on how big your demand is. Now, Anna says that this is a dream, so what the hell, she might as well just go for it. She tells the creature about her hardships and where she's at in her life right now, and that she wants to experience the complete opposite of that. She wants to live an abundant life and she wants to be rich. To which the creature asked her, are you ready to sacrifice for the things that you truly want? Julie wanted to know what was the price. To which the creature approached her, put her hands on her forehead, and once the creature did that, she was able to see a clear image of what her future would look like. She saw riches, lots of money, a lifestyle that she only ever dreamt of, and she wanted that. However, she also saw the not so good part. She saw very clearly in the visions that a lot of people around her started to die. And through the vision, she understood that that was the price that she would have to pay. And knowing that, well, this is just a dream and everything that she saw in the vision still looked pretty good, Anna agreed. She said, then woke up, went about her life, didn't think about it. It just seemed like a hazy, fading dream. Days go by and she doesn't notice anything different about her life. She still doesn't have a job, she still has an evictions notice, and she's still broke. So clearly that was nothing but a dream. She said one random day she decided, you know what, let me just play the lotto. It's around the holiday season. Let me test my luck. And at that point, she completely forgot about the dream. She said she played the lotto and won a decent amount of money. With the decent amount of money that she made, she was able to get into the stock market and get into investments. She said once she got into investments, that's when everything skyrocketed for her. It seems like she was making all the right moves and she could never mess up. And she said that she was in her house making all of this money. She got her daughter back from her mom and things are going great. She says 5 years later of doing this, she was touching millions of dollars that she had never touched before, giving her daughter a life and experiences that she only ever dreamt of giving her. On Christmas of the 5th year, her mother, who was perfectly healthy in Boston, she fell down the stairs in her home, winded up in a coma, and passed away the next day. 2 weeks after that, her boy best friend got into a tragic car accident. He did not make it. And coming into the new year, which would have been this year, One of her cousins fell really sick and also she did not make it. She says she met a guy beginning of this year and she really likes him. And as the holiday seasons are rolling around, he started becoming very sick. He never had lung problems before, however, he developed one. Doctors can't even tell him where this came from. And at this point, this is when Anna started to remember that she did strike a deal 6 years ago, but it was a dream and she barely remembers it. And Anna says that this might be the biggest coincidence of her life, or she might have accidentally actually sold her soul and potentially made the biggest mistake of her life. Anna wants you all to know that if you're going through anything in life, just wait your turn and pray. Don't do anything crazy because you might just fuck around and find out. Things are not looking too good for her boyfriend right now and she doesn't know what to do. And that is all she submitted. Thank you guys so much for watching this spooky story. Since we don't know what's going on with this app, I will be posting longer, better, spookier stories on my YouTube channel. As you guys can see, I already started. If you're looking for videos to binge watch, I have 78 spooky videos on my YouTube channel. So you better make sure you subscribe to get me to 50K. We don't know where this app is going. And my Instagram is Rebecca_Journey. I'm trying to get to 10K, y'all. The link is literally on the top of my page. We don't know what's gonna happen come January 19th. If you want to be able to keep in touch with me, make sure you follow me on all my other platforms. Anyway, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.
So a lot of y'all are unaware about Devil's Hour at 3 a.m. and that's honestly why I avoid staying up past 3 a.m. And after hearing this story from one of my followers named Kira, who told me about why she never stays up past 3 a.m., I think you'll never want to stay up late ever again. So Kira is a sophomore at a college in upstate New York, majoring in psychology. Like most college students, she pulled all-nighters often, scrolling on TikTok, studying, or binging shows when she couldn't sleep. She told me her dorm room was small, a twin bed against the wall, her desk by the window, and her closet right beside the door. She shared the suite with 2 other girls, but they all had their own room connected by a small hallway. At night, when everyone was asleep, the whole building would go quiet, no music, no talking, no noise, except for the faint hum of the heating vent. So tonight for Kira was like any other night, pulling an all-nighter. And when she noticed the time was 3:02 a.m., that's when everything started. Kira told me she was lying on her bed, laptop open, halfway through an essay when her screen flickered just once and her webcam light turned on. She told me she hadn't opened any apps, she wasn't on a call, the little green light just stayed on for about 5 seconds before shutting off again. So Kira told me in this moment she kind of just laughed nervously, assuming it was her computer glitching. But then she told me her Bluetooth speaker across the room made a faint crackling noise like static. Then through the static, she swears she heard something whisper, "You shouldn't be awake." Kira told me she just stopped. It wasn't loud, and it kinda sounded like someone was talking from inside of the wall. She shut her laptop, unplugged the speaker, and tried to convince herself that she was just imagining things. She even texted her roommate down the hall, but the message just said delivered. No reply, and Kira ended up falling asleep at around 4 a.m. But the next night, she stayed up again, and Kira told me it just got worse. At 3:11 a.m., she heard something in her room. A faint clicking sound, tap, 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 coming from her closet. It sounded like fingernails against wood, very slow. She got up from her bed, turned on all the lights, and whispered, "Is someone there?" Kira then told me the tapping stopped, and for a few seconds, it was silent. Then, one single tap, like it was a response. Kira said in this moment, it was like she was trying so hard not to pass out. That's how scared she was. She told me she backed away from her closet, grabbed her hoodie, and ran over to her roommate's room. Her roommate was confused, and Kira said she was a little bit upset that she had woken her up. But when they went back together to check, the tapping was gone. Everything looked normal, and honestly, Kira just looked crazy. The next night, Kira told me she tried to go to bed early. She told herself she was overtired, maybe just hearing the pipes. Maybe all of this was just stress. But just before 3 a.m., she woke up to the sound that made her whole body shiver. Footsteps, slow and soft ones coming from the hallway. She assumed it was her roommate until she started to hear her doorknob rattle. Once, twice, then it stopped. She told me she sat up on her bed whispering, "Hello?" but there was no answer. Then she heard a voice on the other side of the door that sounded like her roommate. "Hey Kira, can you open the door?" So she told me her body relaxed for a second until she noticed something. Kira had gotten up, checked the little peephole, and noticed her roommate wasn't at the door. In fact, there was no one at the door standing outside. Kira told me she then backed away from the door whispering, "Who's there?" She then told me the voice answered again. "It's me, Kira. Open the door." Only this time, the voice didn't sound right. It was off. Kira told me it was like someone was trying to mimic her roommate's tone, but it was slower and deeper and it just sounded weird. Then seconds later, Kira told me the voice changed completely, and in a whisper, it said, "Let me in." Right after that, banging on the door. Kira told me she grabbed her phone, shaking, texting her roommates, "Someone's at the door." Within seconds, she heard both of her roommates' doors open and peeked out from the peephole to see that they were both standing there. Kira said she opened the door and told them everything, even the banging. And the crazy thing is, Kira's roommates heard the banging and thought that it was Kira doing it on purpose. Fast forward, they called campus security, who came up and checked the entire floor. The cameras didn't show anyone entering or leaving the building between 2:30 a.m. and 4 a.m. No forced entry, no noise detected, nothing. But here's where it gets weird. When they checked Kira's dorm door, the inside of the handle had smudges like fingerprints from someone who had been holding it. And keep in mind, the roommates never touched that door handle, they were just standing outside. Kira told me she moved dorms a week later, but even now she says she can't sleep through the night. Every once in a while, if she's still awake past 3 a.m., she swears she can hear that faint clicking sound again, like fingernails on wood coming from her closet in her new room. She ended up telling me that she doesn't know what it was, but it wasn't human. And whatever it was, it knew her name. Kira told me she has no idea what to do, but the only thing she can do is avoid staying up past 3 a.m.
I didn't think this story was gonna be as scary as it was, but it definitely is, so let me just start. So this guy says that when he was younger, one of his distant aunts passed away. He says that he really didn't know her, but he could tell the big impact that her death made on the family. Since they all traveled into the town that she passed away at, they sent him to go and spend the night with his cousins. He explains how they weren't gonna stay at the cousin's house, but at their cousin's grandmother's house. He had never met their grandmother until then, and he explains how she was really nice and even asked him to call her Mama Carmen. And no, it was not his grandmother. He was related to the uncle. The aunt was by law married and his aunt, so it was the mom's mom, so not his grandmother, but his cousin's grandmother. I hope that makes sense. He explains that Mama Carmen's house was really big and it was made out of wood and it was so pretty, but he knew that there was just something off or weird about it. So when nighttime came, they directed him to this really big room in the house, and the older cousin said something to him that just like threw him off. Before walking out of the bedroom, his cousin tells him, "Hey, whatever you do, just don't respond to them." And he was like, what do you mean? And the cousin tells him, just don't respond to the voices. Don't respond to the thing that's gonna talk to you from under the bed. Bitch, if you think I was about to stay there, I'm gonna go wherever you're going after that, because what the hell? However, he knew his cousins and how much they play around, all the pranks they've done on him in the past, so he was just like, ugh, this is another prank, so whatever, yeah, I won't listen to the voices. He also admits that when his cousins would stay at his house, he would also scare them, so obviously he just thought this was a joke. So he ends up falling asleep and then wakes up to a voice calling him by his name, Felipe. He thought he was dreaming, but as he opened his eyes, he could have sworn that he heard that last little Felipe. Not me giving myself goosebumps right now. So he's laying there very still, awake, and hears nothing. And as he's drifting off to sleep again, he hears that voice again, Felipe. This time, he recognized the voice calling him by name. It had been a very long time since he had heard that voice. It was almost like he had forgotten what that voice sounded like, and it was because it was his mom's voice. His mother, who was no longer living. He immediately gets up and starts walking towards the door. He says he doesn't even want to look back. He doesn't even have the courage to look back and see what is underneath the bed, but he exits the room. However, when he finally makes it to the door where his cousins were sleeping, he said that he felt embarrassed. He thought to himself, if I go in there and tell them that I'm scared or tell them that I heard voices, they're never gonna let it go. I'm gonna have to hear this for the rest of my life, and he didn't want to deal with that. He said that it took him a minute to grow some courage, but he just turned around and went right back to the bedroom that he was sleeping in. He walks down the hallway, goes into the room, lays down, and he's laying there for a good minute. And finally, he is drifting off to sleep, and that is when he hears the voice again. Felipe, I forgive you. You have nothing to forgive me for, he said, half asleep, responding to the voice. You wish for me to die, but I forgive you. the voice responded. So this is where Felipe finally starts telling us a story about what happened with his mom back when she was alive. And he says that he has to confess something that he had never told anyone. His mom was really sick, so sick that she fell into like some sort of paralysis on her body. And he had to take care of the mom because the dad basically abandoned them when this happened because he couldn't deal with it. So can you imagine, like, the mom fell into paralysis, the dad left because he just couldn't deal with it, and he left his son to take care of a fully grown adult. He does say that the dad did continue to send them money to help out around the house, but he never showed up. He stopped playing outside with the neighborhood kids. He stopped doing his homework. He didn't go to school anymore. And all he did all day long, 24/7, was to take care of his mom. And he admits that at that time, he really hated his life and everybody who was in it. And yes, it's true. He really wished for his dad to die for doing this to him, but he also admits that he wished for his mom to die as well. He says that he doesn't wish her dead the same way he wished his dad dead. He wished her dead just so that she can get some peace, so that she wouldn't be in pain, and so that he can also just be a kid again. And he says that it was really hard to take care of her because she couldn't eat by herself, she couldn't shower by herself, she couldn't even go to the restroom. So it was things that he had to do for her, and it was a lot. But that desire for his mom to die was something that he never told anyone, not a single soul. And this is in fact the very first time that he's writing this down for this podcast to share with the world. So we go back to the voice telling him that she forgives him for wishing her dead. He is more asleep than awake when he asks for forgiveness to the voice that sounds like his mom. He admits that he doesn't know if it was really his mom or what was underneath that bed, but because of what the voice said, he wanted to ask for forgiveness, and he actually put his hand down underneath the bed. He didn't know what he expected. He didn't know if he expected somebody to grab his hand, for someone to say that he's forgiven, but he put his hand down there and actually fell asleep with his hand just hanging there. After falling asleep, he was awoken by a weird sound, and when he opened his eyes, it's when he felt a sensation of something touching his hand. He explains how the hand felt really rough, and it was definitely coming from underneath that bed. At first, he thought he was dreaming, but no, this was definitely not a dream. He was definitely awake. So by this point, the hand was already grabbing at his chest, and he was terrified. He said his heart was beating so fast. However, his curiosity won over the fear that he was feeling. So he literally moved to the edge of the bed and looked to see what was coming out from underneath the bed. What he saw was this very long, gray, old-looking hand coming from underneath that bed. It was fucked up. It was scary. As he was looking at the hand, he could see his hand next to that other hand, so he knew he was awake, but he couldn't take in what he was seeing. It was a lot, and it was crazy. He said at that point, his body became very cold. He was very stiff, and he can still look at his hand and at the hand grabbing at it now, like they're trying to pull him down. And in that very moment, as he's being pulled down, the voice is saying, "I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you." Over and over again. It was at this moment that voice completely changed. It didn't even sound like his mom's voice anymore, and it sounded like it was making fun of him. So now the voice was like mocking him, saying, "Do you forgive me? Do you forgive me?" Like over and over. He said that the way the voice changed was like it was using his mom's voice, and then all of a sudden it was just not his mom at all. So like it was trying to trick him. For some reason, this reminds me of Leprechaun. Have you guys seen it? Where like his voice changes. That was also the moment where he remembered what his cousin told him. If a voice is talking to you, do not respond. He wanted to take that advice, so he decided to stay quiet, but at that moment, it was too late. He had already talked back to the voice. Without knowing what to do, he said that he literally bit his mouth so that he wouldn't talk anymore, closed his eyes, and just stayed very still. He even tried to like let go of the hand that was holding him, but the more he tried to let go of the hand, the more the hand was trying to pull him underneath the bed. "Felipe, let me go. I'm getting scared. I can't do it. Felipe, let me go. Felipe, let me go." That's what the voice was telling him now. He finally understood that that was not his mom. That was not his mom's ghost. That was not his mom at all. It was actually the complete opposite of what his mom was. So he fought. He said that he fought for the longest time. He tried to hit. He tried to hold on to the bed. He was not about to let this thing drag him under. And he was successful because it finally like let go of his hand from all the fighting that he was doing. And when that happened, he immediately turned to like the side of the bed where the wall is, where that thing cannot reach him. He said that he sat there next to the wall on the bed, just like waiting for a hand to come up and try to get him again. And it was like the longest silence he had ever experienced. But that was also when the sun finally came out and he heard somebody in the kitchen. He literally jumped off the bed to the door into the kitchen, and it was Mama Carmen that was in there. He told Mama Carmen everything that had happened in the bedroom the entire night. He admits that she never interrupted him. She heard everything he had to say. When he finally finished telling her what happened, she just looked at him, smiled at him, and said, "You shouldn't give anything that much importance." That surely it was a hallucination or he was dreaming. That maybe it was because of him going to the cemetery and funerals because of that aunt that passed away that might have caused him to hallucinate or have these types of dreams. She also asked him not to pay attention or to listen to his cousins because they're little scaredy cats and they also love scaring people but were scared as well. She told Felipe that they used to sleep in that bedroom and then didn't want to sleep in that bedroom anymore, so maybe they made it up so that no one could sleep in there. Sorry, what? You're telling me that they've experienced this, but you're saying they made it up because what? She said that she believes that they made up this story so that they can move out of that bedroom and somebody else occupy the space that they were always scared to sleep in. He admits that he would have loved to believe her saying that they made this up, but how would they explain the voice? How could he explain the things that the voice was saying that only he knew? Now I'm curious as to what his cousins experienced in that room because it's obvious that they've experienced something. He was like, there's no way that they could have pranked me with my mom's voice and saying things that I had never told anybody. So yeah, she doesn't want me to be scared, but I believe my cousins and I believe they experienced something in there. He also says that he's never gonna forget what that hand looked like. Like, that was not a dream. That was not something that he dreamt of. He was awake and he was there. But man, I would not know what to do if that happened to me. What do you guys think?
I got you. This is the story of my family's experience with what I believe was a mimic, or at least displayed some very mimic-like behavior. This happened in my family home that I would eventually inherit from my father when it was just him and my brother living there. The house had kind of a weird history to it. It was like an artist's home and she really built it in like a very specific way to her taste. Like cut a lot of corners building it to make it really artsy. And she never ended up living there. So when she eventually sold it, my dad bought it and he and my little brother lived in it together. And things were pretty wonky as soon as they moved in. My brother says he went for a walk one time in the forest surrounding this area and found like a perfect circle of animal bones with like something in the middle, and he got a really bad feeling and just ran the other way back home. But the creepiest thing has to be the fact that for the first little while after they moved in, they would see each other walking in and out of rooms or leaving the house when they weren't there. My brother was sitting on the couch watching TV when he suddenly saw my dad like walking out the front door, like saw him open the door, close it behind him. He didn't say anything, but my brother didn't think much of it. He was just watching his show. And maybe like 2 minutes after he saw my dad walk out the front door, saw the back of his head, saw him leave, his bedroom door opened, like right behind the living room, and my dad walked out. And there's no way back into his bedroom from the front yard unless he crawled through a window, which my 6'3" dad wasn't doing. Another example of this I remember my dad telling me was when he was using like this weight bench that we had upstairs. He was working out and he heard my brother walk in the front door and heard his voice downstairs say like, "Hey dad." My dad yells back like, "Hey," or something like that, and continues on with his workout. And a minute later, my brother walks out of his bedroom, which is like right next to this area where my dad was working out. They would hear each other's voices when they weren't home. Like my brother would be away for the weekend or something, and my dad would swear he could hear him talking and laughing upstairs. There was even this really weird incident where, again, on the workbench, one of them was working out on it when suddenly these bookshelves that they had against the walls started shaking like there was an earthquake, but it's Georgia and there like wasn't an earthquake. And they get up from working out to like see what's going on, and right as they get up, like something really heavy fell down from the bookshelf where it would have landed on their head if they had stayed on the bench. It got so bad they had someone out to cleanse the house, and that was always crazy to me because like my brother is kind of a skeptic, but my dad really truly was a skeptic. I think more in the sense that like he believed in the paranormal, so maybe not a true skeptic. He just had a really big respect for it. It was like, you don't acknowledge it, it doesn't acknowledge you. We don't talk about that kind of stuff. His only daughter grew up to tell people ghost stories on the internet. Who would have guessed? But it got so bad, I know they had someone out to cleanse the house. And again, this was like 10 years ago now. So I don't know exactly what went down or what the energy was like in the house after that. As far as it was told to me, they had someone out to cleanse the house, and pretty much in the next couple of days, things stopped completely and it never happened again. Both of them told me stories about this though, and both of them were really shaken up from it. Again, much more startling coming from my father, who didn't talk about the paranormal at all. If you guys want, and my brother is down, maybe sometime I can get him on to talk a little bit about his experiences in that house. But again, we inherited the house after my dad passed away, and in my experience there, I've had a couple of paranormal things happen, most of which I've talked about on my YouTube channel, but nothing quite like this. Nothing like a mimic. Like that, seeing the back of each other's heads, like hearing each other talk. I never really knew what it was called when they originally told me about it. But now that I look back, I'm like, oh, that was a mimic. You guys had a mimic in and around the house. The whole story is really fascinating. I think about it all the time till this day. It's one of the scariest stories I've ever heard, and I believe it completely because I know my dad and my brother, and neither one of them would just manufacture a ghost story for fun, especially because like I was the only person they were telling. I actually have like 2 other stories that I did experience that could be mimics, but I'm not really sure. If you guys want to hear those, I can keep the story times going, but hopefully you enjoyed this. You hear something calling your name when you're home alone, you see the back of someone's head when you're home alone, you didn't. You didn't. You ignore it. You lock yourself in a room. Don't acknowledge it. Stay safe and spooky, friends.
I'm gonna try this for the second time because when I recorded the first time, it was no audio recorded. But now I'm just gonna speed it up. This is what happened when the ghost followed me home from New Orleans. When we were leaving New Orleans and we were all in the car, I felt that there was a man with me, and I told everybody in the car there was a man with us, and we all did our own little separate prayers to try to get him to go ahead and stay where he was at, and he couldn't come with us, right? Of course, sometimes it doesn't always work depending on the people that you're around and all that. So I get back to Atlanta. About 3 or 4 days after that, things start moving around in my house, okay? One, I start realizing that there's somebody peeking around corners in here like this. And I would see shit like this. So after seeing that a lot, I started to acknowledge the spirit, like, who are you? What do you want? Get out, you know? And then it started touching stuff in here. So this was me and my girlfriend was going through this where we would be sitting somewhere alone and things start moving around in the house. There was a time where I was sitting over here on this couch, and all the way across the room over here, I saw my shoe slowly lean and fall off of something. There was a different time I was sitting right here on the couch, and you see that bag over there? That bag is hooked onto some clips. It unhooked itself and fell to the floor. Dead silent in here. I'm chilling, sitting on the couch by myself, and I just have to look up and be like, stop touching shit, right? So this was the ongoing thing for about a week and a half in my house. Was like things were moving around. They didn't have no business moving around. And I talked to my girlfriend about it. She had been seeing something walking around in the house. Things had been moving around, and she had felt something poke her. Now, this is when I knew that it was getting serious. I could feel him, and I could see things about him in my mind's eye. I could see what he looked like. I could see about how old he was. I could see what his energy was like. I could see what he was wearing. So I was starting to get a feel and an idea for him and like why he was around. Wasn't a bad guy at all, kind of like a guy that like died young in his early 20s, and I was just the only light that he could see in that area, so he followed me all the way home. But I was laying in the room, right? I went to go take a nap. My girlfriend told me like, go ahead and take a nap. So I went in the room to take a nap. She was out here in the kitchen where I'm currently at. I'm in the bedroom on the end of the bed taking a nap, right? Laid underneath her like this extra little blanket or whatever, just laying on the end of the bed. I felt her walk into the room, and you know, you can kind of hear the air change or whatever, like when somebody's coming close to you. I felt her and heard her walk into the room, and it felt like she walked into the room, looked at me, noticed I was asleep, and then touched my head and gave me a kiss and walked out. Now, when she walked in, when I heard her walk in the room, I woke up. My eyes was closed, but I woke up. I thought she was gonna ask me something. So I woke up and I felt the fingertips touch the back of my head, and I felt my head kind of get this weird little tingle on the inside, and I felt the really, really light. And I turned directly around and the room was empty. So I sat up and I said, oh, okay. Came out here and noticed she was in the kitchen. Told her what happened as soon as it happened, right? So after that, I honestly sat in here one day when he started moving shit around again and fucking with the lights. Like, he was making the lights flicker and stuff. So I told him that he had to leave. But the thing about me is I don't just like banish spirits to go and you know, haunt somebody else. I send you on your way. So I called in my angels and my spirit guides and my ancestors to come in and help this guy move on if he was willing to do so. And he was willing to do so. He just didn't know where to go or how to do it. So we helped him. He moved on. He's gone. My house is clean. That was the spirit I brought with me from New Orleans. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about this experience. If you went to New Orleans and brought something back with you, if you're from New Orleans, if you've ever been haunted, if you're a medium, whatever, let me know in the comments.
This story is so creepy that I have to force myself to stop thinking about it. It came from one of my followers that wants to stay anonymous, but the basis of her story was seeing a person that was not human. And I know that sounds crazy, but just listen to this. So she starts by explaining that she was using the bathroom in public one day, and as she's sitting in the stall doing her business, she hears the door open. And you know how the bathroom stalls, at least here in America, have those huge cracks where you can kind of peek out and others, unfortunately, can peek in if they really wanted to? Well, as she's sitting there on the toilet, she hears someone come in, so she kind of leans over to peek out and see who's in there with her because she notices that this person doesn't go into a stall. When she looks out, she sees this lady standing in front of the bathroom mirror, and she's just standing there, kind of smiling at herself in the mirror. The girl in the bathroom stall that sent me this story is thinking, okay, this is kind of weird, but she's just gonna mind her own business. She peeks out a couple more times, and this girl is still standing there in front of the mirror, just making different facial expressions at herself. Now at this point, she's already finished up with what she went in there to do, but she isn't really sure that she wants to get out of the stall and leave while this lady is still in there because she wants to avoid any awkwardness. She doesn't think that the girl standing at the mirror even knows that she's in the bathroom with her, and she doesn't want to embarrass her or anything, so she's just kind of waiting it out. But then she starts to hear these really strange noises. They're almost like these weird guttural grunts, like this girl is trying to find her voice. She's doing it repeatedly, over and over again, but as she's doing it, her voice is changing and forming more into a normal talking voice. Now the girl in the stall is positive that she's not leaving. She's officially freaked out. She said that it almost sounded like the girl was trying to mimic human speech, and she's still just standing there, kind of leaned over with her face pretty close to the mirror, watching herself make these different facial expressions and making these strange noises. But then her eyes dart over because she sees movement in the girl's stall. Once this thing realizes that she's not alone in the bathroom, she immediately stands up straight and walks out. And the girl in the stall who sent me this story ended by saying, whatever it was knew what it needed to do to blend itself into human society. So my mind can't help but wonder, what was it if not human, and why is it trying to mimic human form?
I saw a baby crawling into my bedroom, only I did not have a baby. A woman named Josephine sent me the story, and she said that when she was about 21 years old, she got married, and a little bit after that, she got pregnant. It was her very first pregnancy. She was excited, but she was nervous. And she says that as soon as she got pregnant, she started having really bizarre dreams. And one specific day, she was taking a nap, and she's facing the wall towards the bedroom door, and she sees the door kind of creak open. She thinks she's asleep, so she's laying there, and in her sleep she has her eyes open and she sees a baby kind of like sitting down at the door, not coming in, not moving. on top of her stomach. And of course, motherly instinct, you try to protect your baby. But it was kind of like a sleep paralysis type thing. She couldn't move. And she says that as soon as this evil looking thing sits on her stomach, she feels a very sharp pain in real life. That next day, unfortunately, she miscarries. And she says that what's scary is that after that happened, she never had a dream like this ever again. She never dreamt of this baby. She never saw anything similar to this ever again. And she doesn't know what to think of it. Because it didn't start to happen until she got pregnant. But then it didn't stop until that tragedy happened. Again, this happened when Josephine was 21 and she is now 56 years old. She has lived her life. She has had other children. She's a grandma. And she says that she still thinks about this all the time. She just doesn't know what to think of it because it's just so bizarre. And she just doesn't know if it's a coincidence. What do you guys think? This is bizarre. I've never heard of a story that is anywhere similar to this. What do you guys think? Thank you so much to Josephine for sending me this story and for being so vulnerable enough to share it with us. And if you guys have any spooky stories that you'd like for me to read, please send them via DM or email because I'd love to read them. And I will see you guys in the next spooky story. Bye!
Somebody submitted a story from South Africa saying, "This is why I will never go back to my grandmother's house." I am back with another spooky story. We're gonna call the person who submitted the story Timba. So Timba said that she wanted to share something that happened to her when she was staying with her grandmother. It was in a small village outside of, I'm sorry if I butchered it, Ntata, Eastern Cape. Now, Timba said that this happened back in 2018 and she still really doesn't know how to explain it. So her grandmother lived alone in this old house surrounded by bushes and trees. And it was that type of place where it was silent at night, like no activities, no lights, cars, really just darkness. And her grandmother always told her, be inside by 7 p.m. The things that walk around that time do not like to be seen. Timba thought that her grandmother was just trying to scare her. One night, the power went out and it was around 9 p.m. She went outside to start the small generator. Says now when she gets out there, it's very creepy. As she's walking out there, the air feels thick. She has goosebumps. And it was pitch quiet, like you can't even hear crickets. She turns on her phone's flashlight and she's flashing it around. And that's when she saw something standing by the tree line. She said it looked like a woman, but her head was tilted in like this weird, unnatural way. Like her neck itself had no bones. She called out to this lady, thinking maybe it was their neighbor. The lady didn't move, and she didn't answer. She just stood there. This lady had on this long dress, and it was just swaying, even though there was no wind. And then she hears her grandmother's voice behind her whispering, "Don't answer her." When she turned, her grandma was standing by the door, pale as chalk. She pulled Timba back inside and locked the door 3 times. And then she said to her, "That's not a woman. That is I'm so sorry if I butcher this because I know I will. It's an Isitunzilla, a wandering shadow. Once it knows your voice, it follows it." The rest of the night, Timba could not sleep. Around midnight, they heard tapping at the window, like someone was dragging their nails across the glass. Her grandmother just started praying in Xhosa, and then the tapping sound eventually stopped. They somehow made it through the night, but at sunrise, they found something outside the window that shook them to their core. Well, outside the window, it was a piece of cloth, old, torn, and wet, covered in soot and what looked like fingerprints burned into it. The grandmother told her to bury it at the edge of the property, so she did exactly that. She says she left, went back home. She hasn't been back there ever since. She says she has no interest. Again, South Africa, you guys always come with the spooky stories. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you have a spooky story that you want me to tell, feel free to submit it to me right here on TikTok or on Instagram. If you want longer, better, and spookier stories, subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me right here on TikTok for more spooky content. We are so close to 300K. Like I say at the end of every single video, I love you, my abducted humans, from your favorite Haitian homegirl.
Paranormal story time. If it's late at night for you, I would suggest you not watch this video. So to set the scene, this is the middle of winter when I was about 7 to 8 years old, and at this particular time in my life, I had a bestie, a ride or die best friend. We're gonna call her Lily. Me and her were together almost every single weekend. I'm talking about ride or die best friend to the end. You get my drift. And on this particular weekend, we had a sleepover, as we usually did. Her family had an electric piano in the basement. This basement was creepy. I'm talking about Basement from the Cabin in the Woods creepy. If you know the movie, then you know my reference. Cobwebs everywhere. You wouldn't have wanted to go down there. I'm one to always fall asleep before everybody during a sleepover. I always fall asleep early. I just cannot stay awake. I cannot hang. So I fall asleep before her. Mind you, she had a bunk bed. She would sleep on the top and I would sleep on the bottom. As I'm going to bed, I just don't feel good. In my soul, in my energy, this felt different. I didn't feel right. I felt very uncomfortable. The house was freezing cold and the house was dark. I mean, pitch black. You could not see your hand in front of your face. I'm so serious. Her dad was the type to where if it was bedtime and you were going to sleep, you had to turn off the TV. You had to turn off the lights. Everything had to go off. You weren't keeping a light on in this house. I wake up in the middle of the night. I don't know what time it is. It's dark. I'm having trouble going back to sleep. I'm tossing and turning. After about 45 minutes go by, I start to be able to doze back off. No sooner do I start to fall asleep, I'm awakened by the sound of music. I don't know where the sound's coming from. It wasn't a TV. Nothing's on. There's not a light on in this house. I remember vividly I was laying on my stomach, so my back was exposed. And this is when I feel a rush of air go down my back, and it's cold air. I'm frozen with fear. But after a few minutes go by, I get the courage to try to wake up my friend. I call her name, there's no response. I call her name again, still nothing. After I call her name a third time, the music does stop. I have to get up. I'm trying to find my way to the door because it's dark. Like I said, you can't see anything. I finally reach the doorknob, and as I start to twist it, the music starts playing again. There's no turning back. I have to pee. I gotta go now. I run to the bathroom, and this bathroom is closer to the basement. And if you remember earlier, I said they had an electric piano down there. It was the piano. The piano is playing. I finish using the bathroom, and I run back to the bedroom. I get under the covers so fast, but that's not even the crazy part of the story. The next morning, I tell my friend about this piano playing. She goes, "The old piano from the basement?" I said, "Yes." She's like, "There's no batteries in that piano." I actually, sadly, did not go back to her house after this. We actually stopped being friends. When I told her that I didn't want to go back over there, it kind of just put a bad taste in her mouth, I guess, but I know what I heard. The piano was playing.
Snacks in hand, the vibe is set, and once I start, don't eat too much because you gotta stay fine. But come on, bestie, yeah! Hi, bestie boo. I missed you. You know it's story time, right? So that means you gotta eat. Yeah, go get it. Get your snack, get your cola, get your rolling equipment, you know what I mean? Yeah, I started to acknowledge all my gardeners because I did notice that in the comments, a lot of people don't really eat a snack per se. They garden instead. And this is a safe space. We don't judge around here. Anyway, on to the story. For the sake of this story, let's call this girl Amaya. And this story is from London. So Amaya was living in South London, not far from Brixton. So if you know where that is, then you would know, because I wouldn't. More like an older area, right? So she moves into this old flat that belonged to this older Caribbean woman that ended up passing away. Mind you, she does not know this. Like, when she moves in, she doesn't know this. The landlord never told her anything about it. All she knew was that rent was cheap, and that should have been a red flag for London. But it was really cheap, and she grabbed it. You know, economy's hard. So first week into the flat, nothing crazy, just like cold spots, knocking sounds late at night. Like it sounds like things are moving through the raw. There was one specific weird thing that would happen every night around 3 a.m. There would be 3 very slow knocks. And because this is like an older apartment and like an older flat, she's assuming it's probably pipes or something, right? And she found this place for dirt cheap, so she'll take whatever comes with it. So the noises wasn't really bothering her until it started to be noises and then smells. Not bad smells, strong smells, like Florida water, like herbs, like sweet smoke, the kind of smell that you really only would recognize if you grew up in like a spiritual household. Wait, this started to become like an every night kind of thing, plus the noises, and it's making her kind of nervous. But she's like, you know what? I'ma deal with it. Anyway, so one night she wakes up from those 3 knocks that I keep telling you keeps happening at 3 a.m. Except this time she heard footsteps coming from the kitchen to the hallway. Like slow dragging steps. And London flats are very small, so if there was someone else in the house, you would know. So she knows she's not crazy. She's hearing this, and she knows like something's up. So she tries to play it off. She picks up her phone to try to like scroll on TikTok or something, but then she notices no Wi-Fi, no service. Like everything is not working. At this point, she's getting real nervous, you know? So she's like, you know what? Let me take my butt back to sleep. I'm taking my ass back to sleep, and hopefully, you know, this is over with. So as she's like laying there, closing her eyes, trying to fall back asleep, she could have sworn she's hearing somebody whispering her name. Amaya. At first, she's like, oh, maybe it's in my head, like I'm falling asleep. But then she started paying attention. It started to sound like the person, whatever it is that's calling her name, is getting closer and closer to her ear. And at that point, she froze. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She felt like something was literally heavy on her chest, and she couldn't do nothing. Safe to say that she didn't go to sleep that night. She was up until she saw the sun outside. She did make a friend with one of the neighbors, right? So she immediately decided to go talk to the neighbor about it, because she's like, yo, I know I'm not going crazy. Like, I'm not cuckoo. I'm not bugging. So let me see if there's something I don't know. So she goes and she talks to the neighbor about it. And she didn't even have to finish telling the story. The neighbor literally said to her, you're in her flat. At the time, she didn't know that there was an older Caribbean woman that used to live there that actually passed away. Turns out, the woman who lived in that apartment before was very known in her community. People used to come to her for protection, revenge, blessings, whatever. She didn't really have family, so when she passed away, nobody came to the apartment to like cleanse it or like pray. You know what I mean. So she took this information with her. She went back home to her flat, that same flat, and she was basically debating on whether or not she should like move out, right? Now, that debate didn't last too long, because right after, like as she's wondering that, guess what she finds? She found a small like cloth bundle behind the radiator, like at her flat. It was wrapped tight inside like herbs, coin, and there was a photo. Picture was a picture of somebody she doesn't really recognize. But what freaked her out and what helped her make the decision was that when she pulled out the photo, the date that was in the back of the photo is today's date, like the day that she was finding that. She moved out within a week. As far as right now, the flat is still empty. Every time somebody comes and tries to rent it, they always end up leaving. Now, realistically, I feel like if she would have just got my ebook and cleansed her apartment the right way, like you're supposed to, and prayers, she would have been just fine. She would have been able to keep the apartment. But it's okay. She didn't know. You do, and you still don't have it, and I don't know why. There's literally people in the comments telling you they got it and their lives changed. So it's like, I don't know. Can't help you no more. Just kidding. No, but for real. If you want the ebook, the link is in my bio. It's called Cleansed and Covered. Don't forget to show me what you was eating. And don't forget that I love you. Okay, bye.
This is 100% true story that happened to a woman in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, there was this woman named Sherry who moved into this house with her 2 children in Madison, Wisconsin. Now, she said, you know, at the time, she didn't believe in anything supernatural. She really thought that was a bunch of nonsense. But she said, you know, right away when they moved in, she would notice, you know, out of the corner of her eye, sometimes shadows moving across the walls. She would hear strange noises that she couldn't explain. But she said for the most part, it was just a normal house. One night, she's upstairs in her bedroom and she's folding laundry. She hears talking coming from her son's room. So she makes her way over to his room. The door's closed and she hears her son having a full-on conversation with someone. And she's like, who is he talking to, you know, at 12:30 at night? So she opens the door, and when she looks in his room, he is not in his bed. So she starts yelling for him. She looks down and sees him next to the side of his bed, on his knees, crouched down with his head under the bed, talking to someone. And she's like, hey, who are you talking to? Like, who's under there? And her son's like, I can't tell you. And she said, what do you mean you can't tell me? Like, who's under the bed? And he's like, I can't say. He'll get mad. And she's like, what? Who's under there? So she runs over to the bed and she looks underneath there. It's empty. There's nothing under there. So she's like, you know what? Just get back in bed. Like, just stop, you know, doing whatever you're doing. So several weeks pass, and like on a regular basis, she keeps finding her son talking to someone under the bed, except there's no one there. So after a few weeks of this happening, she thinks maybe something is wrong with her son. So she takes him to this child therapist. The therapist like assesses him and says, you know, he seems completely fine. It's probably just his imagination. So several months pass and he keeps on doing this. Well, one day she's sitting down in the living room with him and they're talking when she notices he has some scratches and bruises like all over his body. And she's like, where did you get those scratches and bruises from? Like, what's going on? And he's like, I can't say, I can't tell you. And she's like, yes, you have to tell me, like, what is going on with you? And finally he breaks down and he starts crying and stuff. And he just starts freaking out. And then he runs up to his room. So the mom, you know, at this time is like, I don't know what to do. Like, what is going on with my son? Like, she's just panicking. Later that night, she's awoken to her son screaming in his bedroom. She runs as fast as she can. She goes in his room. She finds him halfway underneath the bed. He's grabbing onto the bed frame, and it looks like something is pulling him under the bed. So she immediately grabs him, pulls him out from under the bed. She looks under there. There's no one there. So she's like, you know what? This is weird. Like, you're sleeping with me tonight. You're going to be in bed with me tonight. So they go back to her bedroom. He lays down. He falls asleep. She's sitting in bed. She can't sleep. She's like freaked out about this whole situation. When all of a sudden she hears, shh, hey, come under the bed. And she's like, what? She looks over. Her son is sleeping. But then once again, she hears, hey, come here under the bed. I need to talk to you. And it's like a man's voice. And she's like, no, who are you? Like, go away. And the man's like, come on, get under the bed. I need to tell you something. And like, she's like, no, I'm not going under the bed. And she said this man, whoever he was, just started yelling obscenities and getting really angry. So she grabs her son. They get out of the house. And she said she left that night and never went back. And still to this day, that house sits there. And she said she's talked to the neighbors, and they said since she's moved, like several families have lived there, and they move out immediately.
Get ready with me while I tell you guys the story on why to this day I still cannot sleep with all of the lights off. A couple months ago I told this exact story to you guys, but my best friend was telling me about her weird creepy experience with a different little boy that she babysat. So I was like, okay, maybe I should retell it on TikTok. Because when I tell you I still have nightmares about this little boy, I still have nightmares about this creepy little boy that we used to babysit. I'm literally getting chills even thinking about this story, but let's get right into it. So we babysat this little boy every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. His mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she had 3 different jobs, so she definitely needed help, and we helped her out and basically had her kid for 3 days straight. For starters, this little boy was around 5 years old, and he wasn't nonverbal, but he never spoke around us. We never really questioned it because kids work in mysterious ways. And I'm really emphasizing the mysterious on this little boy. I have a really big thing for little kids, and I love little kids, and I would always try to play with him, but every single time I tried to play with this little boy, this is what I would get. The big eyes with the weird look on his face. I got a spray tan and look how splotchy my face looks. But back to what I was saying, it's fine, like kids are weird sometimes, right? Oh, at least he liked to watch TV. Oh, wait, never mind. He liked to stare at the blank screen on the TV. And if you tried to turn the TV on, he would look at you like this. Like, turn it off, bitch. I'm watching my blank screen. It would low-key creep me out a little bit because what in the world are you staring at a blank screen for hours on end before? Like, go watch some Coco Melon. Anyways, let's just skip to the most interesting part. It was a Friday night. I will never forget. My bad, I take that back. It was a Thursday night and I woke up around 3 a.m. in the middle of the night. So at this point, it was Friday. You ever have that feeling where you wake up in the middle of the night and you are dying of thirst? Well, I was on the 2nd floor. This was in my old house. Anyways, I was on the 2nd floor. I was feeling a little bit lazy. I was like, my legs aren't gonna work right now. I am in the middle of sleeping. But man, was I craving a juice box. I wanted one so bad, but we didn't have any. Reminder. we didn't have any juice boxes. At this point, we were too broke to afford juice boxes anyway, so I know we did not have any in the house. Again, emphasizing we did not have any. As I'm going to get up to go find something to drink, probably tap water, because again, we had nothing. This little boy walks in my room with a juice box. I didn't think anything of it. I took this juice box and I'm like, the Lord answered my prayers. Thank you so much. I said thank you. He walked out of my room. I'm drinking the juice box. As I finish the juice box, I set it on my nightstand and I pull the covers over me to go back to sleep. I pop up. When I tell you, I was like, one, where did that juice box come from? Because I know we are too broke to have any in the house, like I said. Number two, why is the little boy up? Why is he up? Why is he up? Number three, how did he know I wanted a juice box? Because it is 3 a.m. It is way past his bedtime because his bedtime was 8:45. 8:45 p.m. You better be under the covers if you are under the age of 10 years old in that house. At this point, I know what you guys are all thinking because I was thinking the same. I'm like, we have babysat this little boy for how long? He is like family to us. Let me go back to sleep and stop overthinking. It's 3 a.m. You know, the demon's gonna get me. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Even after telling myself, Gianna, you are crazy, stop overthinking, I was still overthinking, so I went downstairs to see what he was doing and why he was up.
Go downstairs and he is asleep on the couch and I'm like, Gianna, you are insane. You are insane. You just imagined all of that.
As I'm walking back up the steps, my room is right here. Here's the bathroom. This is the hallway. All the lights in my room were on and a couple downstairs. The rest of the house was completely dark. I know I seen that little fucker. I seen him. He was in the hallway. He was not downstairs asleep, even though I just went downstairs and I saw him asleep. He was right there. I feel like I'm reliving it in my head. He was right there. He was right there. How did he get there? I don't know. I don't know. He teleported? I don't know. And again, what's going through my mind is it's 3 a.m. Crazy things happen at 3 a.m. So I go grab my flashlight. I shine it to exactly where he was and he wasn't there. So I'm like, I am not going to be able to go to sleep if I know for a fact he is not still downstairs sleeping. So I went downstairs to check if he was still sleeping on the couch and he wasn't there. He was not there. Let me just start calmly telling this story. I come back upstairs and he was asleep in my bed. I can't calmly tell it. That motherfucker was asleep in my bed even though I just seen him every which way of the house. At this point, I am bamboozled. I lock myself in the bathroom and I'm like, I'm just gonna fall asleep in here. And then I was like, never mind, I am not comfortable. I ended up going back into my bedroom and he still sound asleep on. But now there's a new problem. My juice box wrapper was missing. As I am going to get back into my bed and lay right next to him and go to sleep soundly and forget about it all, he turns around because he was facing the wall and he said, I threw it away for you. That's the first time I ever heard that motherfucker speak. Literally the first time I had ever heard his voice, and it was the cutest but creepiest voice ever. My makeup looks horrific today, but let me know if you guys want a part 2 because it just gets worse. You guys, bye, and now that I'm retelling the story, I'm probably gonna have nightmares tonight. I'm creeped out all over again.